There's a troubling update out of Las Vegas, and it centers around one of the Raiders' biggest offseason acquisitions, Christian Wilkins. According to a recent report, Wilkins is still dealing with significant foot pain, and it's not just lingering soreness. The word is that Raiders team doctors have strongly recommended a second surgery, one that could potentially sideline Wilkins for the entire 2025 season. Now, this report didn't come from just anywhere. It came from someone claiming direct access to inside information. Someone who says a reliable source within the organization confirmed that Wilkins is not healing as expected. The original surgery, which took place about 7 months ago, hasn't done the job. And that's alarming. Why? Because this kind of foot injury, often a Jones fracture, is notoriously tricky. In some cases, the first procedure doesn't fully correct the problem. Roughly 20% of players need a follow-up surgery, and while the success rate after the second surgery is high, the recovery still takes 3 to 6 months. Here's the dilemma. Wilkins doesn't want the surgery. He wants to fight through the pain, stay on the field, and help the Raiders in what could be a defining year for this franchise. But the team's medical staff sees it differently. They want him to prioritize long-term health, even if it means sitting out 2025. This is a critical moment for the Raiders. They invested heavily in Wilkins, not just financially, but with the hope that he'd anchor their defensive line. A player of his caliber brings energy, leadership, and relentless motor to the trenches. Losing that presence? It would be a brutal setback. And here's the emotional core of it all. Wilkins is a warrior. He knows the weight of expectations. He knows the fans are counting on him, but he's also human. He's hurting. He's conflicted. And now, he's facing a decision that could change everything. For himself and for the Raiders. No matter what happens next, this situation is far from resolved. If Wilkins pushes through the pain, he's risking long-term damage. If he opts for surgery, the Raiders lose a major defensive piece for the season. Either way, this isn't just about medical advice. It's about heart, timing, and the high-stakes world of professional football. Let's say the Raiders start the season slow, something like 2-8. If that happens, Christian Wilkins might have a tough but necessary decision to make. Shut it down early and get surgery, giving himself a head start on recovery for 2026. That's the core of a troubling update surrounding Wilkins. The report claims, with conviction, that Wilkins does need a second surgery and could miss the entire 2025 season if he goes under the knife now. What's worse is that Wilkins is reportedly resisting the procedure. According to the source, the Raiders' medical staff has urged him to undergo surgery to avoid worsening the injury. But Wilkins is choosing to battle through the pain, at least for now. For a player who just signed a massive deal, around $30 million per year, the situation is getting tense. Some critics are already calling it a disastrous contract. But let's be real, injuries are unpredictable. This wasn't some reckless signing. Wilkins had earned that deal. This is a guy who worked his way up year by year. He wasn't dominant out the gate, but by his fourth season, he was a force. And even in his short time with the Raiders, he was wrecking offensive lines. You could feel his impact on almost every snap, blowing up run plays, collapsing pockets, creating chaos that let teammates clean up. That's the kind of difference maker the Raiders paid for. You don't draft a star, you pay for one. Simple as that. And Wilkins earned that check, long before this injury story broke. To put things in perspective, teams like the Patriots or Panthers were handing out bigger contracts to defensive tackles with less production than Wilkins. So this wasn't an overpay. It was the cost of landing one of the league's top interior defenders. Now, of course, all of that is being put to the test. If Wilkins misses the 2025 season, the contract looks shaky. That production, that disruption, gone. But if he returns healthy in 2026 and 2027, the Raiders can still squeeze real value out of this deal. Here's the big unknown. Can he still perform while injured? That's the gamble. Playing through pain at defensive tackle is brutal. He'll be double-teamed. He'll have to hold the point. Can he still slide into the one-tech or nose tackle spots? Or will he need to stick to playing off the guard's shoulder? These are real football questions. And right now, there are no clear answers. If Christian Wilkins chooses to push through the pain, he likely won't be the same player. He'd be forced into a role where he's more of a three-technique pass rusher, not the dominant run stopper he's built his name on. And let's be honest, his strength has always been controlling the trenches against the run, not just chasing quarterbacks. That's what makes this situation so devastating for the Raiders. This isn't a surprise either. Rumors of Wilkins' foot issues go back months, possibly as far back as March, when early whispers began circulating that a second surgery might be necessary. Now, there's talk that maybe Wilkins should have had that surgery back then, but it's not that simple. He originally had the procedure in October, spent 3 months rehabbing, and has been training hard all offseason. If he had gone under the knife again in March, it could have wrecked his prep for the regular season, possibly leaving him unready even for a playoff push. This is a lose-lose scenario. If he plays through the pain, the risk of re-injury or long-term damage looms large. If he has surgery now, he's likely out for the year. That's a tough pill for any player, but especially one just entering a new chapter with a new team and a massive contract. Some might question the legitimacy of the report, but in the NFL world, truth doesn't always come from big names. We've seen credible news break from unexpected sources before. Just think back to the Malcolm Kunsey ACL report. At first, it was dismissed when a fan on Twitter posted it. A few days later, it was confirmed by team insiders. It's a reminder. Information leaks from all corners. A practice squad player, a trainer, a scout. And sometimes they get to the truth before the media giants do. So where do the Raiders go from here? If it were up to some fans, Wilkins would have surgery now, rehab hard, and try to return for a potential late-season push or the playoffs. A fully healthy Wilkins in January would be a far greater asset than a limited version fighting through pain all year. Even if it means missing 2025 entirely, long-term health should come first. Because this isn't just about one season. It's about preserving the career of a player who, when healthy, is one of the most disruptive forces in the league. And if the Raiders ever hope to build a truly elite defense, they need Wilkins. Not at 60%, not limping through games, but at his best. More updates are expected, and until training camp officially opens, this story will hang over the team like a storm cloud. For now, it's all eyes on Wilkins, and the difficult decision that could define the Raiders' season. Training camp is right around the corner. Rookies report July 16th, and veterans arrive just 5 days later. And as the Raiders prepare to hit the field, there's already a quiet evolution underway on the offensive side, one that could define the Chip Kelly era in Las Vegas. Recently, former Raiders great Lincoln Kennedy, a standout offensive lineman during his playing days, shared some insightful observations after attending minicamp practices. And what he revealed about the Raiders' run game philosophy is worth every fan's attention. According to Kennedy, the Raiders are implementing a hybrid run scheme, zone blocking on the perimeter, man blocking inside. That kind of strategic blend isn't revolutionary, but it is significant. It tells us a lot about how this team plans to attack defenses under Kelly's direction. Here's what that means. On outside runs, toward the edge, beyond the tackles, the Raiders are leaning heavily on zone concepts, particularly wide zone. This approach allows offensive linemen to move laterally and block areas rather than specific defenders, giving explosive running backs space to read and react. On interior runs, however, they're keeping things tight and physical with man-blocking schemes, where each lineman is responsible for a particular defender. This lets them control the line of scrimmage in more power-based scenarios, especially helpful when the defense tries to stack the box. Kennedy praised this dual approach, calling it a smart way to keep defenses from keying in on any single run style. He's right. Versatility up front means more unpredictability, and in today's NFL, that's critical. The wide zone scheme has taken the league by storm. Think of Kyle Shanahan's 49ers or Mike McDaniel's Dolphins. With athletic linemen and the right backs, it opens massive lanes. Just look at what Christian McCaffrey did in San Francisco or what Devon Achane showed in Miami. Those teams thrived using this system. For the Raiders, implementing wide zone means they're aiming to create explosiveness in the run game, not just grinding out yards, but stretching the field horizontally, making defenders chase. It's a scheme that rewards speed, vision, and discipline. And if executed well, it could change the dynamic of the offense. What's becoming clear is this. Chip Kelly's Raiders won't be one-dimensional. They're building an offense with multiple gears, and that starts with the way they block up front. As training camp approaches, the focus shifts from speculation to execution. Soon we'll see how well this hybrid scheme translates under live fire, and whether it can become the foundation of a new identity in Las Vegas. Everything we're learning from camp points to a clear identity forming in Las Vegas, one built around two powerful run schemes, wide zone on the outside and man blocking, or duo, on the inside. Former Raiders lineman Lincoln Kennedy recently shed light on what's happening behind the scenes, confirming that the team is fully embracing wide zone concepts under new offensive coordinator Chip Kelly, and they have the perfect piece to make it work: Ashanti, an explosive back who thrives in space. If this system clicks, it could open the door for big plays on the ground. But the more intriguing detail? Inside runs won't follow the usual zone patterns. Instead of inside or mid-zone, the Raiders are reportedly moving toward power-based man blocking, specifically the duo run scheme. Let's break it down simply. Wide zone stretches the field horizontally. The goal is to move the defense laterally and let the running back make one cut and explode upfield. Duo, on the other hand, creates multiple vertical lanes inside. The offensive line uses double teams at the point of attack, then climbs to the second level, allowing the back to choose from 5 possible running lanes. It's structured power, but with flexibility, a brutal combination for defenses. Duo might look like zone to the running back, but the blocking is all power. It's straightforward for linemen and devastating when executed well. And it's no coincidence that offensive minds like Sean McVay have made duo a foundational part of their system. He's turned what was once a basic concept into one of the most efficient inside run plays in football. In practice, the Raiders have been seen working on these principles, double-teaming defensive tackles, reading linebackers, and letting the back make real-time decisions. That's duo in action, and Kennedy's insight confirms it. This is the direction Las Vegas is headed. If the Raiders truly commit to this blueprint, wide zone to stretch, duo to punish, they won't just have a competent run game. They could have a top-tier rushing attack, because sometimes simpler is better. And when you combine smart blocking with an explosive back, you don't need a playbook full of tricks. You just need 2 things: space and power. And it sounds like the Raiders are about to deliver both. If the Raiders truly commit to this offensive vision, they might be building something special. And Chip Kelly appears to know exactly what he's doing. At the heart of this scheme is wide zone blocking, and it plays right into the strengths of Kolton Miller, one of the best offensive tackles in the NFL. When Miller locks onto a defender and seals the edge, it opens the door for a dynamic runner like Ashton Jeanty to break loose. One cut, one crease, and he's gone. That's the magic of wide zone. It doesn't need a dozen things to go right. It just needs a tackle to win his rep, a back to hit the hole with confidence, and a defense to hesitate for one step. Just ask Christian McCaffrey. Just ask Devon Achane. These are the types of backs who thrive in this system. Jeanty can be the next one. Even better, Jeanty is already comfortable in this style of football. At Boise State, he ran plenty of wide zone and duo, and he thrived. So his learning curve should be minimal. His transition to the NFL, smoother than most. And that's what gives this run game real teeth. It's not just about play design. It's about matching the scheme to the talent. That's what successful coaching looks like. This all points to one key takeaway. Chip Kelly knows how to install an offense. That's not a guarantee you get with every coordinator. Plenty of coaches fail, not because they don't know football, but because they don't know how to build a system from scratch. Installation matters, teaching it matters, and Chip Kelly's done it at Oregon, in Philadelphia, at UCLA, and at Ohio State. Now he's bringing that same experience to Las Vegas, and this time, he's got a roster that just might be ready to take off. If this offense clicks, if the wide zone hits and duo pounds the interior, the Raiders aren't just going to be competitive, they're going to be dangerous. So as training camp inches closer, there's a new energy in the air. Not just hope, but conviction. Not just ideas, but identity. And if everything aligns, if the defense holds and this run game becomes the engine, don't be surprised when the Raiders are playing meaningful football in December. Maybe even more.